In today's video, we're going to be talking about the top 5 coins that I believe are going to run the market in Q1 of 2026. Let's just dive straight into it. Coming in at first place, if you've been watching my channel, you know that I'm a big believer in XRP. XRP's had a lot of really great developments over the past couple of weeks that position it to be the #1 slot in the entire cryptocurrency market. Not only has it had successful ETF launches in the past month, we're also getting close to seeing the Clarity Act getting passed in the US government. It's already made it through the House. Now it has to make its way through the Senate before it can finally be signed by the president. We know that Donald Trump is a big fan of crypto, so it's a no-brainer for him to sign the Clarity Act. We are waiting on the Senate, and the Senate moves on Senate time, so it's hard to say exactly when this vote will happen, but I'm expecting that if it doesn't happen before New Year's, it's almost a certainty that we'll see this signed either early on in January or perhaps in February, but it's definitely going to be coming in Q1 2026 one way or another. So something strange happened when I recorded this video. I shared my screen in nighttime mode. On my end, the font looked normal, but on your end, you'll see that there's this strange border around the font. I'll have to figure out why that happened, but in the meantime, I'll do some overlays of normal mode footage so that you can read the font. Thanks for understanding. Now let's take a look at some of XRP's inflows from the past month. Looking at the Bitwise ETF alone, we've seen that it's grown $200 million in inflows since it initially launched on November 21st. It looks like the daily inflows are somewhere usually between 3 and 5 million, which is pretty good considering this is just one single ETF. We've seen comparable results for the Franklin Templeton ETF as well. That's going to be XRPZ. The inflows are around 150 million still, a little bit above. We've seen the big inflows coming in on launch day, November 25th. Although Bitwise had the larger launch day, we can see right here that the daily inflows for Franklin Templeton's ETF is much higher. I mean, in some of these cases, we're seeing 10 million, 30 million on the December 2nd. We saw 31 million just yesterday on December 9th. So Franklin Templeton's getting a lot of inflows. It's one of the bigger AUMs in asset management. They've got a lot of money coming in, a lot of very wealthy clients. And now a lot of people are getting exposure to XRP through these ETFs, especially now that Vanguard has finally crossed the Rubicon. They're allowing their users to also buy into these ETFs. Vanguard was very against cryptocurrencies for the longest time. Even now, if you go onto their website, it all but urges you not to buy. So if Vanguard is holding their nose while allowing you to buy the ETFs on their site, it just says that the proof is in the pudding. XRP having 4 different ETFs launched in November, it's really leading the pack as far as other cryptocurrencies go when it comes to inflows. We're able to see here the oldest fund so far, again, all launched in November. The Canary ETF launched on November 14th, had an astounding $250 million in initial inflows. Its daily volume, it's better than Bitwise, but not quite as great as Franklin Templeton's, but it's still doing a very good job, putting it at almost $400 million in the opening month alone. This is a very big deal for XRP because what we're expecting is a supply crunch to take in effect early in Q1 of 2026. When this supply crunch happens, much of the available supply that's currently on the exchanges is going to get gobbled up by these ETFs, making it very difficult for retail investors to be able to get large sums of XRP through exchanges like Binance, Crypto.com, Coinbase, and Uphold. The supply shock is very good news for XRP holders because it means it's going to dramatically drive the price upward. As the supply goes down, the price has no choice but to go up. In addition to this, when the Clarity Act passes, we're no longer going to see XRP and similar tokens of great value being looked at as securities. Once they have clarity, they're going to be regarded as commodities, which means they're not going to be as heavily regulated as securities are. One of the key benefits of this is if you can prove that a commodity is being used either in manufacturing or in some sort of service, then capital gains taxes do not apply for that asset. So the digital assets like XRP and the other tokens that'll become commodities as well will be able to be traded without the worry of capital gains. All of this regulatory approval means that institutions will now want to use XRP. Many of the large banks already know that XRP is going to be the big winner, but they're holding off on using it because they're waiting for that regulatory approval. It may just be a formality of words, but in the banking industry, none of the large-scale institutions want to touch it before it has that regulatory approval that comes to through the Clarity Act. But they know that this is the future. They're waiting in the wings. And once we see the Clarity Act pass, I believe that we're going to very rapidly see the beginning stages of XRP adoption. Currently, if we look at XRP's price, it's trading at $2.07 as of today. When Clarity passes and when the supply shock happens, I'm expecting throughout Q1, we're going to see XRP no smaller than $10 by April 1st. It could be much, much greater than that. I highly doubt that it would be anything below. We can see over here, the community sentiment is very bullish, 87% on XRP. And if we look through the charts in the past year, it hasn't really grown too much. So this has been a really good opportunity for new buyers to be able to get in while the getting is still good. We had all-time highs in July, just barely touching 360. It's been on the steady decline ever since. This has some people worried. There's a lot of FUD in the market right now. If you use Reddit or especially Twitter, you'll see plenty of people saying, sell your bags, get rid of your coins. I highly encourage everyone not to listen to these detractors. By the way, this is a good time for the disclaimer. I'm not a licensed professional. I'm not a financial advisor. Everything you see on this channel is just merely my opinion, and do your own research before making any purchases. The coins I'm covering today are just coins that I believe in. I'm only sharing with you my own investment strategies. Knowing full well that I believe that XRP hits $10 or above by April 1st, my investment strategy right now is to allocate as much as I can to XRP. There's 4 other tokens. I'm going to address those next in this video. I'm not actively buying them yet, but I do believe that XRP is going to grow at a faster proportion than all of these other 4 tokens. Once XRP has its exponential growth spurt, I do think it will steady off and probably won't grow as dramatically in the future as I believe it's going to right now in the near future. So once that event happens, new future monies that I have going into the market will probably go to these other 4 coins so that I can diversify my portfolio a little bit better and take advantage of new opportunities that are going to have their own exponential growths. I just happen to think XRP is going to do it first, and because of that, I don't really have a whole lot of reason right now to be buying other tokens. In my current investment strategy, I'm allocating about 80% towards XRP, and I'm allocating the other 10% towards 2 other tokens. We're going to address those 2 next. In general, when I do believe this price hike happens, I might cut that down to 60% and allocate 10%, 10%, 10%, 10% to the other 4 tokens that we're going to be discussing in this video. The next one on this list is going to be HBAR. I believe HBAR is very well positioned to be the number 2 coin in the cryptocurrency market. What makes HBAR so unique is that unlike all of the other blockchains, it uses a different consensus algorithm. It's a hash graph, not a blockchain. I do want to keep this video high level, so we're not going to get too much in the technical details. Really what I want to drive home is that currently Hedera's HBAR token is one of the very few tokens available on a hash graph system. Everything else is on the blockchain, and there are major differences in these consensus algorithms that separate the 2. Largely, it could be argued that the hash graph technology is actually faster and more secure than blockchain, and because Hedera is the only one that's really doing it at this time, HBAR is well positioned to be in first place if the world chooses to move towards a hash graph cryptocurrency. In addition to its heightened security, it's blindingly fast, much faster than even XRP. In fact, it could almost be argued that HBAR is a better technology than XRP. The one thing holding it back is that it doesn't really have any major partnerships yet, at least not on the level that XRP and Chainlink do. Those 2 tokens are driving institutional demand, and for that reason alone, it's really hard for me to put HBAR in the number 1 slot, although I do believe it has a very promising future. I'm putting it at number 2 for now, and I just want to take a quick look at its price so you guys can see it for yourselves. Now, HBAR is a pretty cheap token. It's only at around 14 cents right now. I don't expect that this token is going to grow quite as dramatically as XRP does in the next couple of weeks or the next 2 or 3 months. But I do think that we could very easily see a $1 HBAR probably at some point in 2026. I think this is a very reliable token. I don't think that too many people will be disappointed with their purchase if they go with this. Looking at its all-time graph, we can see that just like XRP, it started the year out very well. It came very close to hitting all-time highs in January, getting all the way up to 35 cents. And then I had another good spike back in July, getting it up to 27 cents, but it's been on the steady decline ever since. If we look back in 2021, we can see that its all-time high that it ever hit was 43 cents. Just like many of the other utility tokens, now is a really good time to be buying these because they are on the low end, they're pretty cheap, and there's a lot of FUD in the market right now. Now when it comes to charts like this, I don't necessarily get too hung up on the daily prices. I'm looking at these as 5-year-long opportunities. So when I see these charts showing all the way down, you go from 31 cents in January all the way down to 13 cents here in December. Well, that tells me that right now is really the best buying opportunity that we've seen since 2024 and earlier. Given that I do believe this will hit $1 in the next year or two, anything that you can get right now is going to be a good sweet deal. As stated earlier, I'm more heavily allocated towards XRP in the moment. I do think it's worth stating that if HBAR goes to $1, that would put it at around a 6 to a 7x opportunity right now. I think XRP is going to do much better than 6 or 7x, and that's why I'm more allocated towards it right now. But however, I do see a future where when XRP has its initial price appreciation, we may no longer see it having 2, 3x, 4x opportunities. It may just double, very similar to how we see Bitcoin right now. In a case like that, doing a pivot towards HBAR I think is a very smart move because I think HBAR is going to follow XRP, but it's not going to happen at the same time. I believe that first XRP has to go, and then some of these utility tokens like HBAR, Chainlink, etc., those are going to go after. So I think it's a really good idea to really keep an eye on these, put it on the watch list, maybe slowly dollar cost average into it, but maybe not invest all of your available principal into this one quite yet. This is my number 2 coin. My number 3 coin I'm very excited about, and I had a really hard time deciding which one was going to come first. I ended up with HBAR purely because of its unique properties as a hash graph. My third favorite token is going to be Flare. Flare follows HBAR's price almost to an exact 1/10 degree. So if HBAR is trading at around 13 cents, we can see that Flare is trading at 1 cent and a third. Still trying to figure out how to talk about fractions of a penny. If you guys know the right way to say it out loud, I'd love to hear it, because unlike HBAR, I can't say that this is 13 cents. There's not quite a word for something that is a penny and 1/4. So still trying to figure that out. It seems almost every week that I see an interview from Hugo Fillion that something new and exciting is going on in the Flare space. As if Flare assets getting rolled out in September wasn't enough, we just got an announcement as of this week that you can now stake your FXRP with Firelight. So the framework's already set in place for us to be able to get yield and participate in the cryptocurrency market with our own tokens. Unlike some of the bigger players in this space, Flare's making it really easy for everyday people like you and I to get involved in DeFi, and we can start allocating our resources out there to help test network security, and we get to actively participate in the blockchain, and we also get rewards from that. In a lot of ways, I feel like Flare is making it very possible for everyday people like us to become pioneers in this space. So it's doing more than just buying a token and sitting on it. They're allowing us to already use the asset as you would once it becomes a commodity. Again, the Clarity Act hasn't passed yet. Flare is setting us up very well so that when digital assets do officially become commodities, we're going to be able to take full advantage of a lot of these protocols. We'll be able to send and transfer money as a part of the lending community. So we're going to be almost like miniature banks if you think about it. We'll be able to take the tokens that we currently have, lease them out to liquidity pools and labs that need to use our tokens for either transacting or upping security. As we get more institutional adoption and the prices of all these tokens rise, these rewards are going to be very significant. You might even be able to replace your own career's income purely by what we have invested in these DeFi protocols. I'm very much looking forward to how these things play out. I just want to show you the price real quick. If you knew nothing about Flare, you might be turned away by these charts. It doesn't really leave a whole lot lot to be desired. However, knowing what we do about Flare and all the amazing developments it's having, especially in the DeFi space, and allowing us to become active participants, I know that it's only a matter of time before Flare really takes off and becomes part of the institutional adoption. My prediction is that within the next 5 years, I'm very confident that we'll see Flare jump into the top 10. If we look right now, Flare is currently down the list. I believe it's number 62 as of today. Let's see where it is. Okay, Flare's at 63. The market cap is only about $1 billion. There's a lot of runway here for Flare to grow dramatically. And if we look at the price history here, we can see that at almost no point was Flare ever cheaper than it is right now. I don't think we're ever going to get quite as good a deal on Flare as we're able to get right now. It's trading at about the same bottom that it traded at the 3 previous times that it fell. And when this thing takes off, my prediction, and I do think I'm very bullish on this, but I think by 2030, we definitely see a $1 Flare. So if you think about that right now, over the next 5 years, I'm expecting this to 70 or 80x. So I've got Flare very well positioned as my number 3 coin. I'm going to show you what I believe is next. Now, I don't really have a whole lot of this one because as I explained before, I've got 80% allocated toward XRP, 10% HBAR, 10% Flare. Currently, it's trading at about a quarter, so 25 cents. And I want to show you guys a side-by-side with XRP because I don't know if everyone's aware of this. Stellar Lumen, which is XLM, is essentially a clone of XRP. If you think about kind of like how you have multiverses in Marvel comics or video games, XLM is kind of like a what-if scenario of what if XRP never had 50 billion tokens go into escrow? If we look at the charts, they're very identical in shape. So XRP was started all the way back in 2013, whereas Stellar was started in 2014. So the split happened pretty early on. Beyond that, we can see that these patterns are almost identical. The only exception is that Stellar outperformed XRP back in 2021. Beyond that, they're following very similar patterns. The only reason I'm more bullish on XRP instead of Stellar is because I have a more pragmatic view on things. I think XRP having that institutional partnerships, it's going to make it much, much, much more profitable for holders in the next couple of years. That doesn't mean that I don't believe in Stellar Lumens. I'm looking at this from an investor's perspective. Many of crypto's early adopters were on the libertarian side. They looked at cryptocurrency as a form of freedom fighting. I can see how there's emotional attachment to Stellar being the people's coin, that there's going to be a large amount of people that very much want it to succeed. I'm just a little bit more pragmatic when I look at things. When I see XRP getting that institutional adoption, I think that Ripple really knows what they're doing, and maybe that's not the greatest thing for the freedom fighter side of cryptocurrency. But as someone who is ultimately an investor, it's something that I have to take very seriously. I think XRP is going to edge out over Stellar Lumen in the long run. I do, however, believe that Stellar is going to be one of the highest performing cryptocurrencies. I don't think you can go wrong with it. It's just not going to grow as much as I would think that XRP would. For that reason alone, I choose XRP over Stellar. I don't hold a lot of Stellar, and that's the primary reason why. So the last coin on the list is going to be Chainlink. This is going to be my number 5. I look at Chainlink as kind of like a direct competitor to XRP. They move in very much the same swim lanes. When it comes to institutional adoption, some people have argued that Chainlink is currently doing more transactions, is getting more trade volume. So some people have speculated that it's actually further ahead than XRP is in that regard. I myself don't quite buy into that. I do think that Chainlink is going to be a top 5 performing coin, but I don't think it's going to outperform XRP. XRP's partnerships are going to put it into a price action that Chainlink's not going to be able to keep up with. But I think that Chainlink is going to be a very solid token to start buying after XRP's primary price appreciation. If we look at its historical chart, it's basically done what all the other coins have done, maybe in smaller doses, but the general pattern is the same. Large amounts of growth happened in 2021, it fell off, came back around in 2024, and then just like all the other tokens, it's had a pretty rough year since July. We can see here the patterns didn't fully match, right? So XRP, HBAR, and Stellar, they all had their July run, whereas Chainlink kind of had a bad July, but then it came back for August and September. Nonetheless, all the tokens are equally pretty much down here from October onward. If you were going to buy Chainlink, this is the time to do it. It's cheap, it's on sale, and I think with the Clarity Act passing, I do expect Chainlink will end up on that commodities list right next to XRP, just not right away. I think Ripple having the SEC lawsuit really put it into a position where it's going to have that regulatory reaction before any of these other coins do. For that reason, I see XRP taking the lion's share of institutional adoption, but I think it's a good idea to explore some of these alternate coins that are also going to be playing a role in the institutional level. All 5 coins mentioned in this video are utility coins. They're going to get a share of the pie. You can't really go wrong with any of these 5, especially going into Q1 of 2026. Now, you might have noticed that I didn't mention Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Solana. The reason for that is even though I do like these coins, they've definitely had their place in the crypto market space, and they are in the top 4 along with XRP when it comes to total market cap. I don't see them getting adopted at the level that we will with these other utility tokens. Bitcoin, as great as it is, it's slow technology. I don't really see it advancing beyond where it is right now. I do think the price will continue going up, but as the crypto story unfolds, I think most people are going to come to the same conclusion, that as great as Bitcoin used to be, it's no longer fast enough to keep up with a lot of these new entrants. When it comes to Ethereum and Solana, I think it'll go up. I think those prices will continue to rise. The problem I have with it is a lot of the meme coins that we've seen from 2021 and onward, and a lot of the NFTs that didn't go very well either, come from Ethereum and Solana. I don't know if it's totally fair to be calling out Ethereum and Solana this way, but I see them kind of like I see casinos, where they own the operation and then the meme coins are kind of like slot machines. When all these things are running on those networks, I feel like it's just hard to shake that gambling mindset from those tokens. I still think the prices will go up. I think people are still going to make money on them, but they're not something that I personally want to be involved in because I do want to be moving away from that gambling mindset when it comes to crypto and get more invested and get more focused on the utility. So for that reason, I'm not really participating in Ethereum and Solana. They're not in my top 5. Bitcoin, I don't think can move fast enough in this new era. For me, those 3 coins I'm not very bullish on. I would say I'm more bearish. Again, if you buy them, you'll make money. Rising tides are going to raise all ships. I just don't see them being long-term assets that do well going into 2030 and beyond that. I don't buy a token unless I see myself holding it for at least a minimum of 5 years. And in best cases, I'm not planning to sell some of these tokens ever. I'm not selling XRP, I'm not selling HBAR, I'm not selling Flare. With that, we're going to start capping off the video. I'd love to hear from you guys. What's in your top 5? There's other utility tokens out there that I'm aware of that I know I didn't cover in this video, like Algorand, Quant, and Ondo. I think those are all going to perform well too, just not in my top 5. But if you disagree with me, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. If you like the video, go ahead and make sure to like it, subscribe to the channel so that you find out when new content comes out. In the very near future, I'll be doing a demonstration on Flare assets and also taking a look into Doppler and Fire. So keep an eye out for those. If you need help setting up a cold wallet, I've got a video where I set one up from scratch and we even did some test transactions on it. That video will go a long way when it comes to making the demonstrations for some of these other yield-bearing activities that we're going to be diving into in the near future. With that, I've been Andrew Fillion. I hope you like my predictions and I will see you guys next time. Take care.